stay away, mostly driven here by Preston. So the risk I see here, again, I talked about game 3, the risk here is they're going to use up all of their energy and they may end up coming 4th and 5th in this group at the end, and that will still give AHDR and Aero the maximum points from today, just because they're able to sit in this bunch and not do a lot of work. But we are approaching the first sprint of the second lap as we see a drafting power up being dropped by one of the Aero riders here, Garland. It's not a great power up to have in the sprint, as we see a BRT rider, Shelby, open up pretty early, but Preston as well from BRT, she's coming through. She may have the momentum here, coming through, just if we can see, she'll beat the AHDR rider. I don't think she'll beat the thing. I think AHDR, Davidson took it on the line. Davidson, amazing riding. She took that out from that group, a little bit late power up there from one of the Aero riders. And there we go, Garland coming through, but that was taken out by AHDR, amazing, against 2 of those BRT riders. So they'll probably settle down a little bit now. They've got a comfortable, almost 20-second gap, and I think they just do need to be careful there of Shelby, who took out that sprint early, didn't win it, and now is dropping off the pace a little bit.
Well, that is always, so my coach used to tell me, Anna, that you only ever need to win an intermediate by a single millimetre. And if you waste too much energy over the top of that, your competitors will absolutely take advantage. So we'll look back at a replay here. Shelby, she really accelerated and she made a very strong move coming into that sprint. Hotly contested though, certainly all going for those top 3 points. But Shelby, she eased off the power a little bit afterwards, and we can see she's already dropping quite back, but it's because Garland and Davidson, gee, they're impressing me, Anna. They really accelerated after the sprint. That is a really, really savvy tactic, I've got to say, that if you don't think that you quite have the acceleration or the power to finish it off, that you can attack. Now, if we look at the bonus point sprint classification, Davidson so far is leading. I gotta say, Anna, she is absolutely putting it all out there tonight. She's winning the flat sprint. She's also been second over those QOMs, of course, on Libby Hill and 23rd Street. They're tough. What that says to me, she's a very high power rider. Come that final sprint at the 32.5 kilometre mark, I think that even though she's been getting but I think we need to look at Garland and Davidson coming up to this Libby Street, to the Libby Hill climb, and it's when they hit those cobbles that it really gets real, because on that first lap, well, the bunch was pretty much Grupo Compacto until we hit those cobbles, and then it just blew to smithereens.
Exactly. I mean, the difference in this lap too is you've seen these guys put out those sprint watts. Their legs must just be feeling so heavy, and all they've got in front of them is another sprint, and then they've got 3 climbs, one of them being the finish line climb. So don't forget that there's no points on that from the first lap, but the second lap, that's all the points that you want to be getting. So, oh gosh, I don't know if I want to be these ladies. It's on tired legs. This is just one of those courses that is just going to decimate those quads.
Well, lucky you're in the commentary box, isn't it? All right, so the women, they have 10 kilometres left to race. The men are now out on course. They are, of course, also covering 32.5 kilometres of racing, and a much bigger pack for the men, which means a much easier draft effect. 35%, Anna, draft effect for anybody sitting within that blob, and the blob, I guess, is the affectionate term we use in the Zwift world to say bunch, but 35% that is pretty significant. So let's take a quick look at the standings, Anna.
Yeah, so we started off, we've got Division 1B here, Aero Force, taking that one out with ZHQ Ravens, so that's Zwift headquarters. Good job there. The Dirty Sprockets, that's Team Dirt. Love that team. Dad's inside riding trainers. That was actually the Bs, but if we look at the As, I don't want to have favourites, but I do have a favourite and love Team Relentless. Chaos and anarchy is their catchphrase, and they seem to race like that, so we'll see how they go tonight. dPAC-E and the World Elite Zwifters. So that's our top 3 in the men's race as we look at them starting off on those first cobbled streets. They're about to go around the hairpin corner. They're absolutely blitzing through this, as we also see the Division 1C here for the APAC men. AHDR, so strong across all divisions. Cryogen in second and TT1 Carbos in third.
Gotta say, kudos to whoever is naming these teams. There's a bit of creative flair out there. So as the men come into that first sprint, of course, the same course as the women, and it is on a massive acceleration from Vitoni, but he's not having it his own way as Mosby comes over the top. He looks pretty set on that Tron bike with that green jersey. Isn't that very sprint appropriate? To take these first intermediate sprint points, and he'll take it. Mosby takes it ahead of the rider from All for Cakes, goodness me, give me a cake, and the Aero Masters coming in third. Again, it's a team division, so the individuals are earning the points, and it's all about the team and how many points they can earn.
You know, Kay, I'm quite surprised that wasn't contested more. I mean, that was a clear outright win for that rider, and I thought with such a big pack they might have been contested a bit more. Shows that they might be saving it for those climbs, which I think, as we've seen in the women's race, has been quite decisive. Seeing the replay here with Mosby, like I said, huge watts there, around 11.6, and absolutely clear win. I mean, obviously he had the aero power up, bit of a benefit there. Didn't see many others with that power up, so could be that he's just a bit lucky today, but that was a big and decisive win.
That was certainly really impressive. I mean, we're going back to the women now, but Anna, the women and the men are showing quite similar tactics, and quite honestly, if I was a team manager for either team, I would certainly be watching the other leagues and the other races to see what kind of tactics they're employing. So 5 women are still at the front here in the women's race. We're going to take a look at the sprint that they just went through. They're at the 25 kilometre mark, but of course they just had the second sprint in the lap before they head to Libby Hill and 23rd Street. So let's take a look at the replay there.
Let's have a look here. We see Preston leading it out from BRT with Shelby, who got almost dropped after the first sprint, but she's right out there on the second wheel. But it looks as though AHDRL, with those pink Tron bikes, so easy to see, is coming up on that right-hand side, leading into the sprint, which is quite a short one. And S Ryan from BRT has taken... No, it looks like AHDRL, that is Davison there, has taken out... I think she took out that first one as well, so she's having 2 for 2 on the second lap.
That is really impressive riding. Now, I want to talk a little bit for a second, Anna, as they're heading into the final. They're heading into Libby Hill in a second. They've got 23rd Street, 32.5 kilometres in total. They're 26 kilometres in. Let's just talk for a very quick second about their normalised power. So normalised power is how much power they're putting out minus any zero power numbers, which, let's be honest, on Zwift there's no dead spots, so it's fairly accurate. A lot of these riders are between 240 and 260 watts. So far, for 38 minutes, that is a hard race. There is a lot of fatigue in these riders. Their heart rates are very high, but more than that, their legs are going to start feeling really dead. Now, heading into Libby Hill, which we've seen before, it goes up over 10%, but more significantly, it heads over those cobbles and into the QOM, and their legs will be feeling really quite heavy at this stage of the race.
Yeah, I mean, this part of a race, before we go back to the men's, this part of the race is really just about who can suffer. It's all mental, in my opinion. Everyone's just as tired as everyone else. It's just who can suffer and get to the top quicker than the ones around them. As we cut over here to the men's race, and we're looking at the Aero team in front, just putting their nose in the wind here. Not sure on that strategy. You really want to, on a pack this big, be sitting in the top third, just surfing wheels and not really expending any energy. But we can see they are coming out to a sprint, and again, Mosby here from 99 Bikes, he is absolutely drilling this fast on that green Tron. He took out the first one as well, and he may get caught here by O'Connell, who's coming up fast with 13.5 watts per kg. O'Connell may catch him, or Mosby may just stay away for a huge victory again. He can see, and wow, that was just a sprint for second, really. That was a very, very convincing win again from Mosby there from 99 Bikes.
Hannah, Mosby, over 15 seconds, has an 1106 watt average. Just pause for a second and consider that. There's a lot of people who can't even hit 1100 watts, let alone that be the average for 15 seconds. And it's O'Connell who is equally as capable, and he averages 1200, a whopping 1200 watts for that 15 second. It is no surprise to see these pair up there, but what will really burn their legs is that Libby Hill and also the 23rd Street climb. Anna, it's possible that they both know that the back end of this race will hurt, and so they're certainly getting those points early when they can.
Yeah, and I think we're just going to show a replay back to the women here. So they're just approaching that hairpin corner as they approach that Libby Hill climb. Now, this is their second lap, so these climbs are this could be who wins the race. As we saw in the Women's Premier Division earlier today, there were some big moves that ended up being the win due to these first climbs. But keep in mind, and this is where BRT got into this very strong position that they're in, is they didn't necessarily attack on Libby Hill or 23rd Street. They attacked on that final climb through the finish line. And I think if I was BRT, they've got strength in numbers, all work together and then start drafting off each other on that tiny little bit of flat and then hit that false flat and all work together. I think that's how they may stay away.
Yeah, they certainly need to work together. You're right, strength in numbers. I repeat that en masse on my Zwift community rides, because it doesn't matter whether you're racing or you're just trying to do an easy bunch ride. Numbers, because you need that draft. We can repeat it all day. 35% is the draft effect. That is massive. Shelby, she is really impressive, Anna. She made a massive effort in the last sprint. She was a little bit dropped, and I think she's a pretty tough cookie.
Yeah, she's riding at 5 watts a kg up here. I mean, she's got the disc wheel. She's dropped an aero at a very unopportune time. Again, best time is really around that after the second flat part, but she's obviously putting in a big attack here. 4 seconds back to that group containing 2 of her teammates, and this must be a team strategy, because this cannot be a solo for the victory. They know, I think, like you mentioned before, Katie, that Garland has got the legs up these climbs. So, and Davidson as well. And we can just see here Davidson from AHDR is going to catch her, so it was a little bit preemptive, I think, but it has split the field, but unfortunately seems to have split it a little bit not in favour of her own teammates.
It's interesting, isn't it? I think they've all got a little bit of the nerves under their belt, because this isn't necessarily the smartest thing to do. But Davidson has been solid all day. She was second in both of the QOMs, second up Libby Hill. In fact, Garland came over the top only just at the finish. She is slowing down a bit. She is suffering, and that gap is decreasing as Preston comes up to the back of her wheel. Garland isn't too far off, the winner of the first 2 QOMs. She was the first over Libby Hill on the last lap. You can see her because of that bright yellow Tron bike. Davidson leaves on the pink Tron bike, but Garland hot on the wheels. I think she might come over the top.
Feather power up. She's got that feather. Yeah, perfect use of that feather power up. I think she'll come over the top, roll over, take this climb, and to be honest, I think the 2 strongest riders in this group are Garland and Davidson, and if I was them, I would work together and stay away from the BRT riders, because they are definitely a bit in a class of their own.
So similar to the last lap, it was Garland who went over the top of that Libby Hill climb. She certainly knows how to ride it. But more than that, Anna, really impressive use of the power-ups. A lot of people talk about the feather as though it's only for climbs. Now, she did use it on a climb in this point, but it's also exceptionally good to drop when accelerating. Because if you have the acceleration of a heavier rider, but you get that feather, but you still have that oomph of power, I got to tell you, that's a little bit of a magic one. And Garland seems to be dropping them just at the right time. I think you're right. I think Shelby
What has
Was
she done?
drugging
She's
it
just
to
dropped
try and
an aero
attack
power
him.
up. She's dropped an aero power up on
Well,
a downhill in the lead. She could use that in a sprint finish. I would be definitely putting that in her pocket and saving that for the end. So interesting use of a power up there. She was perfect with the feather. Maybe she can explain later in her the tactic there of dropping that power up, because I think, oh man, you just almost want to save that, have that in your pocket for what I think could be a sprint finish between herself and Davidson.
I think she's trying to go solo. I mean, I think that she thought maybe the aero power up wouldn't help her an awful lot coming up to this 23rd Street climb. But as we saw on that first lap, Garland is leading onto that climb, but Davidson is hot on her heels. But I think that Garland has this because that gap is not closing. Both of the riders are working very hard. Their heart rates are over 180 for Garland, Dana Davidson, 190 heart rate. That is
she was up at around almost 300 watts there. Oh yeah, I think I might call it early. I think Garland could have this. She's pushing. She's not even really dropping into a super tuck at the moment. She's just powering through these downhills, and she's got 8 seconds now on Davidson. Even with that little donut of a turn she did on her bike right before the QM, maybe a bit of an early celebration there for her, but she might take this away. I think 8 seconds ahead. She's 14 seconds ahead of Ryan and 17 ahead of Preston. So they've dropped the BRT riders. And Shelby actually has dropped into that chase pack. So Shelby obviously burned every single match in that Libby Hill climb.
Well, we did see Garland just drop into the super tuck. So to get into the super tuck, for anybody who is watching but not super initiated into the Zwift world, you pedal furiously and then you freewheel and your avatar jumps into the super tuck. It's pretty satisfying actually to see your avatar play Peter Sagan or Lizzie Deignan for a second out there. Kim Garland, she's all over it. We questioned her use of that feather. I think she timed it really well. She is not only physically really on top of things tonight, but strategically she is riding like an absolute champion. So she's had 4 of those intermediate victories, and it does look pretty much like she's going to take this overall victory, Anna. But Davidson has been exceptional tonight. She has won some intermediate sprints on her own right. She's finished second in a number as well. She's a few seconds behind now chasing, but she will still get the points for second.
And Davidson has actually been caught by Ryan from BRT, so that could be quite the battle between those two for second and third place, which a lot of points on the line. And the men's race is going on at the moment too. We will show replays of all of what's happening in that race. They're in their first lap, but we are just watching Garland come through here in this big, so brutal this course, just finishing with a huge climb, 8% here, it just seems like eternity. But she's got 9 seconds now. She can, maybe ease off a little bit, but she's not. She's riding at 275 watts, 185 heartbeats, so she is just absolutely monstering the end of this course.
I'm guessing from your commentary, Anna, that this isn't your favourite course to ride around. It's certainly very tough. It's not something you do when you wake up and think, I might go for a nice little recovery ride. Heads up, people, don't head to Richmond if that's what you're after. I think that the heart rates and the powers of these riders is certainly an indicator of just how tough it is. Kim Garland, she's ridden a brilliant race. It's interesting what the BRT team, the Kittens, the Devil Kittens and the Hellfire Kittens have managed to do out there today. The Aero Flyers, Garland's team, they went in as hot favourites. BRT, they have certainly rattled the shackles tonight, but Anna, they haven't come out on top. Garland is riding away with this. She's done such a superb job. 16 seconds up so far and heading toward that finish line. She won't be beaten this evening. A very impressive ride for her, but we do stay tuned for the points race tally overall, and Ryan from BRT, she's riding reasonably cohesively with the Ace of Cakes rider there in Dana Davidson, but Davidson has proven to have very good leads so far.
I think, Katie, it's, we say BRT, hasn't been able to take out this race, but that team tactic has put 2 of their riders in the top 5, which they were nowhere near even the top 6 in race number 1. So they've been able to knock a bit of the AHDR and Aero riders off their perch and come into those top 5 positions. So great team tactics. They weren't able to take the win, but it has meant that they've been able to get some valuable points. As we see Ryan here, this is going to be a nice little sprint to the line with Davidson. She may take this out because Davidson has already dropped her power up. Ryan is out of the saddle, sprinting away. BRT in second. Fantastic. I would say team of the day. Those tactics were unbelievable. And we can see Preston here coming across in 4th. So great riding there from BRT. Didn't take the win, but chapeau, great ride.
Brilliant ride from BRT. So, of course, Kim Garland from the Aero Flyers took that win. Dana Davidson, ace of cakes. Now, Ryan and Preston both BRT, and I think they were all working very well together. But Ryan from the Devil Kittens and Preston from the Hellfire Kittens. But Thunderstruck with Ebert, they are heading into that finish now, and we do have a lot of 1x1. Anna, it's not a group at all. There are no groups left in the women's race. We're going to head back and see what's happening over in the men's race. It's still early on. So they are heading into that second lap now. They've covered 17.5 kilometres. They are hoofing along. So far they've had 2 intermediate sprints plus the race up Libby Hill. They've gone up 23rd Street and they are now into that second lap of racing. Anna, it's a pretty big bunch and not dissimilar to the women, a lot of Tron bikes out there.
There are a lot of Tron, and I've just seen Greg Grosicki in that main group, and that's got to be danger for everyone there. He took out race number 1. He races for Team Relentless, and he has got an epic sprint on him and some amazing power. He's actually competed as an elite amateur triathlete for the last 10 years, but before that was a collegiate runner. Now, this is a theory I've got. I think runners make extremely good Zwifters, because all it is a matter of holding really high heart rate and putting in big threshold efforts over and over again with no recovery. And that's very, very similar to what you'd get with track running. He was a Cat 2 bike racer, but interesting enough, we mentioned this at the start of the show, he started Zwifting when his daughter was born. It was just a way for him to get good workouts in and have the convenience while his daughter was sleeping. So, great to see the dads out there as well. So Greg Grosicki, one to watch tonight, I think. And we're just going to have a look at
big
the
shout out
Libby
to
replay.
All right, so as they went up Libby Hill, of course, it's pretty tough when they hit the cobbled section. Pretty hard fought sprint, but this corner is where it burns up to the 15% mark. Brzezinski going over the line ahead of Cantazzaro and Duffy Jr. following very closely behind. That was tough. They are putting out a lot of high powers to do that. And of course, Brzezinski from Relentless taking the points.
Three Relentless riders all took out all the 3 points on offer. Relentless, just absolutely, like they say, anarchy and chaos. They have dominated that first KOM. Absolutely
Anarchy
dominated.
and chaos, what a brilliant name. How can you go past anarchy and chaos and Relentless? I think they're certainly putting their intentions out there, but they have opened a gap similar to the women. We're seeing a real split in the field here. And Anna, that's because, as we've spoken about so many times tonight, this course is just so tough. There's just no way that a bunch can stay together. So we'll head back to the live racing. They're going over 40 kilometres an hour. They've got just over 13 kilometres left to race. There's a pretty solid group that has come back together now. There's a good looking blob, so they are getting that draft effect, and they will be able to save a bit of energy and to recover a little bit. They've still got Libby Hill and 23rd Street left to go, of course, and they do still have an intermediate sprint, and we've spoken about it so many times tonight. The strategy, Anna, do you go for those intermediate sprints and get some points along the way, or do you save yourself for the finish where there's a much bigger payload of points?
Well, I'll tell you what, right now what Relentless will do, they'll be going for every single point at every single place, including the finish line. That just seems to be the way that they race, and we'll see if we can get some coverage of the second climb again, just like I said, look at that, relentless, relentless, relentless. Dropping a feather power up. You've got Duffy there, Krasicki in second, coming through, and they just got pipped there by S. Lindsay from dPAC. So didn't manage to take out all points on that 23rd Street climb, but 1 and 2 with Duffy and Krasicki. Amazing racing, and S. Lindsay from dPAC just managed to break their little momentum there. So good work from S. Lindsay. Probably one to watch coming through the end here.
So we're seeing some different names that we saw in that first lap going for the sprint points, where it was Mosby from 99 Bikes and O'Connell from Aero who were taking those sprints out. They are still sitting in there, so we certainly haven't written them off, but they weren't as prominent over those climbs as they were in those flat intermediate sprints. And I guess that's really something very significant, Anna, is that those intermediate sprints are very different kind of rider than those climbs, because the Libby Hill climb, especially over those cobbles, it goes up to 50% on that last hairpin. Ouch! That really burns the legs in a way that a pure sprinter who can take those intermediate sprint points, they will just suffer through there.
Exactly, and I'm just looking at some of the names scrolling through here, because we do have overall at the moment Team ZWC Attack is leading the standings, as we see Pat O'Connell. I think we mentioned him in the first lap. He is just coming through again, doing very well from Ireland here, a racer, but with T. Shannon from World Elite Zwifters coming up at 12 watts a kg, but he may have left that run a little late, as we see O'Connell come through in first, Shannon in second, and our AHDR rider from Italy, it looks like, in third. Like I was saying before that sprint though, we're looking at Team ZWC Attack just ahead of Relentless, with World Elite Zwifters and dPAC in fourth behind them. And you can see so many representatives from all of those teams in this main group. So this is going to make some fireworks in those last climbs as to what team is going to come out on top.
So they've got just over 10 kilometres left to go. Their heart rates are all well and truly very high now, 167. Really anything, Anna, over 160 says you're working pretty hard. It says there's not a lot of recovery going on. There's a lot of heavy breathing happening. And a lot of these teams, Anna, we talk about teamwork. So let's talk about what that means. These riders, they'll be connecting via Discord. They might be connecting even simply via a video service like FaceTime or Skype or Zoom or something, but they will be communicating so that they can continually check in on how each other is going and update that strategy.
Yeah, so most of these Zwifters will be using Discord, and that's just all of them dialing in. They're talking, I guess it's like race radio. I mean, Katie, you would have raced on the road and had that in real life. I personally have never raced with a race radio, but it makes it so exciting in the race to hear your teammates, how they're feeling. You do little check-ins, and probably one of the best things is you find out what power-ups all of your teammates have got. I am just a little bit interested here by our AHDR rider, just riding right off 7 seconds ahead there of Pat O'Connell. So this is a decided attack, but at an interesting time before they come up to the next sprint and then a big downhill. So 7 seconds though, he's not messing around.
And this is the kind of attack we saw in the women's from Shelby. Now it didn't work, and it certainly burnt a lot of matches in her box, but it is certainly something worth doing. And again, as you reference, talking on Discord, it is like race radio. They are talking to each other, and they will be saying, who wants to give it a go? We need to put pressure on the bigger teams, and we need to have a go here. And the other thing that race radio Discord, we'll call it race radio because that's what we are really talking about, them talking about what is happening during the race. The other thing that they'll be mentioning, not only sharing what power-ups they may have, but it allows it to be slightly more mindless, where there can be a team manager sitting back and directing them and saying, okay, it looks like these are the heart rates of people, these are how much people are suffering. Now is a really good opportunity to attack. You've got 2.2 kilometres to the next climb, etc., etc. It means you can just focus on riding your bike in a way, essentially, that your team director or team manager is telling you. Now, if you don't have an independent team director or team manager, Anna, you'll certainly have a rider in the team that plays leader on the road and takes the responsibility for those calls.
Yeah, and that's usually the rider who can sort of sit in the pack and relax, because you can't really talk too much when your heart rate's up around 180. So you want someone who's a team manager who can kind of just keep an eye on everything that's going on, even watch another rider, see what their heart rate is. I mean, this was an interesting conversation I had with someone today, was in Zwift, nothing's hidden. So you can sit here, and if you're riding in the back and you want to see how fast this AHDR rider and how hard they're going, just click on them. You can see what their heart rate is, what their watts are, and I'd be a little bit concerned here because 160, I mean, I don't know how old this rider is, but it's not a really high heart rate, and they're riding about 5.2. They've now got 12 seconds on that chasing pack. Now, if he can stay away on this downhill and before those climbs, I mean, that's danger territory. You could be getting up to 15 seconds, and this chase pack on those climbs, they're not going to be in pack for much longer.
Well, that's a really good point, and I think that the tactics out here are very interesting, but we can certainly say that he is in kind of time trial mode. He's doing really well. He's very consistent, and if we compare that to the heart rates going on back here, we're watching TIKD. He's taking out some points there, but he's having to go to very high heart rate and very high power in order to do that. Fairly hotly contested sprint there for the second and third points. Of course, when you've got somebody off the front collecting that first one, it's certainly the easiest way to collect. And of course, the advantage that Vitoni has, Anna, is that he didn't have to burn those matches by sprinting too hard for those points, and his heart rate still remains around the 160 mark compared to the 180 mark of the chasing riders.
Exactly. You can just see from that camera angle, though, that group is coming back. They're just about 5 seconds behind, so I'm not sure what the strategy was. I mean, as an AHDR rider, I don't see many of his teammates in that pack, so maybe he was just going for an all-out effort. He could have seen what the triathlete Lionel Sanders did a few months ago on Zwift, where on this course, he just did a monster time trial effort and managed to stay away against some pretty amazing riders such as Mathieu van der Poel. So maybe he was trying to do that again, but I think he's going to get reeled on in just a few seconds ahead. As we can see, the team league standings here, Relentless, number 1 here, 37 points over dPAC, and then World Elite Zwifters in third with Aero and WTRL rounding out the top 5. But that is a dominant performance from Relentless. Couple of points ahead of dPAC and Wes, who are second and third tied, so that could be a interesting sprint finish between those teams at the end of today's race.
Well, Relentless do have the advantage, but certainly those top 4 are within sniffing distance, and I like to think that when you are that close on points, there's certainly, anybody who's watched the Tour de France or of course the Giro d'Italia, where the race after 21 days has been won in the final day, knows that it's not over until it is over. And I think a lot of these races will be taking each stage with the seriousness that it deserves, but also looking at the big picture and knowing that over the course of this racing series, they can certainly edge their way back up. They've covered 27 kilometres so far of a 32.5 kilometre race. It's 2 laps around the 16.2 kilometre course from the 2015 World Championship course in Richmond, Virginia. Of course, our winner there was Peter Sagan, ahead of the Aussie Michael Matthews, and Navadakis was in third position. It was a sprint finish, but my goodness me, there was a whole lot of action and a whole lot of dirty, filthy weather on the day. Now, that is a factor that these riders don't have to come up against, Anna. They don't have to worry about the elements. They don't have to worry about the flat tyres, the broken chains, the falls, but instead Zwift tries to even that out with the power-ups, and certainly they do a very good job of that. So every time they go through one of these intermediate classifications, they will pick up a new power-up. We saw in the women how influential those power-ups were, and in fact Kim Garland is not only the queen of the day, but I think she is the queen of the power-up usage for the women's race, and certainly in the men's it will play a big part. Vitoni's still off the front. He's only got a 3-second lead on what is quite a large chasing pack as they are heading now into a very tough finale. They'll go into Libby Hill and then, of course, onto the 23rd Street climb. But by no means is that the end of the race. That final 6 kilometres is incredibly intense, and it remains to be seen whether Vitoni can hold off that chasing pack.
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting. His lead is really yo-yoed there. He was down to 1 second ahead and then he's back up to 4 seconds ahead. He's pushing 5.2 watts per kg with a chasing pack there with Rich only holding 3 watts a kg. I think they're just letting him hang out there. They're just letting him hang out to dry, and his watts are just going too high, I think. I think he's just pushed a little bit too much before these big climbs, and they're just sort of hovering. They're like sharks about to attack. It's not a position you really want to be in with the likes of Grosicki and Duffy there from Relentless, and Lindsay. We've got a couple of Kiwis in that pack from dPAC. We've got Firminger and Lindsay who are going to be approaching those climbs with a whole lot of heat. He's pushed his lead back up, Vitoni has, to 4 seconds over that pack, who don't look entirely motivated to catch him. But I think everything's going to change when we hit that little red banner on the side of the road as they round that hairpin, and we will approach this Libby Hill climb in just a few seconds.
Well, Libby Hill, she is a nasty mistress, the old Libby Hill, because it gets to quite steep grades before they do hit those cobbles. But once they hit those cobbles, and you have to remember that in-game, cobbles in-game are equally as hard as cobble out of game. Some riders will choose to use the live effect and have their trainer jiggle them around on the cobbles. I, for one, do not like to do that. It's a bit too real for me. I think the increased power required is more than enough for me. But of course, the riders, they're hitting the QOM now for that Libby Hill. They'll go up this steep section, but it's once they hit that cobbles that it gets real. They take that hairpin onto the final QOM banner, and it's up to KOM, of course we're watching the men banner, and it's up to 15%. Anna, this is a brutal climb.
Yeah, and I'm so impressed with this rider here. He's managed to stay away 2 seconds, but this group has caught him up. And I just saw some ZWC riders catching up from Japan who just managed to reel him in around 7 watts a kg. These numbers are insane. 11.5 from Grosicki here, from Relentless. He is putting in a solid attack with TIKD from ZWC. He was actually in 4th place in our first race, as we see him pull ahead at 11 watts a kg. If I remember rightly, he had an amazing hill climb on him, up some of those big hilly efforts at Watopia, and he's showing that prowess today as he pulls up to that 10.7. But we're seeing some feather power. It's been dropped at a perfect time with Grosicki pushing along on that pink Tron bike with power here from dPAC, looking like he's going to take it out. That hurts for Relentless. That hurts because dPAC is sitting just behind them on the team tally, and that may really pull them up to be close to that Relentless group. Although I didn't see a lot of ZWC there, and they're hitting number 1, and so they may be just dropping off that podium spot after today's racing. That was a very, very thrilling climb up Libby Hill, and we've got 23rd Street just around the corner.
Well, Relentless sitting, they were on 37 points, but dPAC on 35 points. That is pretty much nothing. That is a very close margin. And power, what an acceleration. And again, we keep seeing it, we keep saying it, we hope the riders are listening to us. These power-ups make a really big difference. So the use of them is certainly affecting the outcome of the racing. Grosicki, he's been racing. We talked about in the women, and we talked about those power tugs. Again, that is a big acceleration, and then you stop pedaling. It gives you a bit of recovery, puts your avatar into a bit of a power tug. Quite a few riders employing that strategy. Again, it's a way for the virtual world.
We're just sorry, Katie, we're just seeing a sprint here up 23rd Street climb. We can see power from dPAC pushing up at 12.5 watts a kg. He is pulling away in that deep dish wheel with Grosicki again. How is he doubling up on this? Grosicki and Duffy just behind. Looks like Relentless second, third, with K-Power from dPAC in first. So that is that is some amazing power. And now all they've got ahead of them is a short downhill and then a massive, massive climb to the finish with a pack that has been whittled down from about 40 riders, looking like now about 8 who may stay away. got the compatriot S. Lindsay there from dPAC from New Zealand. He's made that front select group, but this is a very, very select group coming into the final climb to the finish. Oh, I don't even know what's going to happen.
Well, a whole pack of power tuckers, and you know what that tells me, Anna? It tells me that they need a little bit of recovery, and they're certainly taking it, because after that climb, they are not far from the finish. They're only about 1 kilometre out from the finish now, and power certainly powering over those 2 KOMs. Will he have the legs at the finish? Nearly 12 watts per kilo up those climbs. That is massive. That makes my head explode, my lungs explode, my legs explode. And I'm sitting in the commentary box. There, what they're feeling.
I know. We could just see what they're feeling. I just saw Kay Power there, who took out that 23rd Street, say, "I'm done." So that's going to be. You got 1 climb to go there, Power. You've got to hold on. You've got to hold on. You're in that select group. Just stick with it right till the end. As we see, actually, a power up being dropped there. I call that the. I'm in trouble power up. If you're in the bunch and you're dropping that drafting power up, you're in a bit of trouble and you're really trying to save some energy. With a feather here being dropped by Russ from XSU. I haven't heard from this rider at all. They've stayed really quiet for this entire race, and sometimes those are the ones you've got to watch. Although I do see Vitoni, the one who had the huge time trial effort off the front for that very long period of time, getting up to around 14 seconds. He's still in that main pack. S. Lindsay there, up to around 7.8. He's the Kiwi rider. We've got Vitoni, we've got some WTRL riders, World Elite Zwifters, and look at that, about 3 Relentless riders coming through in this pack. But that is 2 seconds now he's got, but you can see Cantanazaro from Relentless and Lindsay, they are dropping some serious power as they're going to round this corner and come into this false flat right until the finish line.
It is a really tough finish. By no means do they go over that 23rd Street climb and have an easy ride to the finish. It is still up 7%, and this is the point in the World Championships in 2015 that a lot of riders had a little bit of an attack, but it was also a time, Anna, where a lot of riders, we saw mushroom clouds as they absolutely exploded in their quest to become world champion. We're seeing a lot of power-ups dropped here. This is their last opportunity to use them.
Yep.
If they have the right one, they'll use them into that sprint finish.
Grosicki, a winner from race number 1, has just been rolled over there by, is that Vitoni, the one who had the massive time trial effort at the start, obviously still has the legs. This is super, super impressive. I cannot believe he's been able to hold on and sprint for that win. Vitoni takes it out with Grosicki in second, and it looks like Lindsay, the Kiwi from dPAC, in third. What an amazing finish. Vitoni, how can you time trial for that long and then sprint finish like that over Grosicki, who is an amazing finisher of these Zwift races? Oh, that was phenomenal.
Well,
as we'll have a look at this replay.
Vitoni, what a finish, Anna. I mean, I think he backed himself for a bit of a breakaway. He clearly had good legs. Nobody keeps going over the top of a KOM when these are